What happens when a law professor gets confronted with his own words in a Senate hearing? And what does it reveal about the growing debate over judicial power in America? Today, we're breaking down one of the most intense Senate Judiciary Committee exchanges you'll ever see. Senators Kennedy and Hawley questioned legal scholars over a practice that's been dividing the country: nationwide injunctions. Let's dive in. Before we get to fireworks, let's establish what we're actually talking about. A nationwide injunction is when a single federal district court judge issues an order that applies to the entire country, not just the parties in the case before them. This practice has exploded in recent decades, and both parties have used this tactic when it benefits them and complained about it when it doesn't. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana wasted no time getting to fundamentals. He asked the panel a straightforward question.
Would any of you advise a client to defy a federal court order?
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer, yes.
In some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay.
Notice how the other witnesses gave a clear no. But Professor Shaw's answer was more nuanced, suggesting there could be a narrow band of cases where defiance might be considered. Kennedy then turned to the central issue of this hearing.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse. No.
Think about that framing for a second. The question wasn't about the last 4 months. It was about the practice itself. But the professor's answer focused on a time frame that corresponds with the current administration. This is where Senator Kennedy pulled out the receipts.
I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings, and I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids.
Whether you agree with Kennedy's characterization or not, this highlights a real problem in our legal discourse. If our positions on judicial power flip based entirely on who benefits, what does that say about our commitment to consistent principles? Kennedy then asked another witness about the abuse of injunctions.
So I'll leave you out of that. Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is.
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats are forum shopping, aren't they?
Certainly.
Professor, do you disagree with that?
I think both sides are abusing them. I agree.
Okay. Both sides.
Yeah.
There are no clean hands here.
This is an important admission. Even the witnesses acknowledged that both parties are guilty of forum shopping and abusing the system. Then came perhaps the most uncomfortable moment of the entire hearing.
On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who are you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If there's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil.
Shaw attempted to claim it might be a transcription error. Kennedy wasn't having it.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
On your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
Big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Kennedy's point was sharp. How can someone who calls Supreme Court justices evil then lecture Congress about respecting the judiciary? Beyond the personal confrontations, the hearing raised legitimate constitutional questions.
I happen to agree with you. I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up.
This is actually a serious legal debate. Scholars are genuinely divided on whether the Constitution permits courts to issue relief that extends beyond the parties before them. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri picked up where Kennedy left off, but with a more methodical approach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's great to have this hearing. Thanks for calling it. Thanks to all of our witnesses for being here. Professor Shaw, nice to see you again. Let me just start with you, if I could, Professor Shaw. You talked about the fact that there have been lots of rulings against the Trump administration. That's absolutely statistically true. I disagree with almost all of them. In fact, I think all of them. But the issue of this hearing really isn't the rulings, is it? It's the remedies. Would you agree? And those are distinct things. You may think that the ruling is quite correct, but that's actually not what we're talking about here today.
Hawley made an important distinction. This hearing isn't about whether courts can rule against the administration. It's about the remedies they choose.
And the question is a remedy that binds parties who are not before the court, is that an appropriate thing? I mean, aren't you concerned about judges binding non-parties in their remedies? You may love the ruling, but even if you do, don't you think it's a little bit anomalous for courts to be going out there and binding parties who are not before them? I mean, is that something we want to encourage?
Senator, I think that judges have been issuing rulings that impact non-parties since Marbury versus Madison, right?
So you're not concerned about it?
I'm not. I absolutely think that they can be abused, and
well,
they
no,
have been abused.
Wait a minute. You were very concerned about it just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Hawley then brought up a specific case that exposed the apparent inconsistency.
You said in response to a nationwide injunction on the Biden FDA's mifepristone rules, and I quote, "This injunction's a travesty for principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law."
I think I've been consistent today. That was issued by Judge Kaczmarek in a single judge division. They're a problem. Those are a problem.
With him personally? Wait,
no.
So your testimony is if it's issued by Judge Kaczmarek, it's bad?
No, sir.
It's personal?
That is not my testimony.
Is the problem with the injunction? You were criticizing the universal injunction
issued by a judge in a single judge division. I've been very clear today that those are a problem.
By a Republican judge in a Republican division, then it's bad.
No, Senator.
Otherwise, it's fine.
No, Senator. I think that single judge divisions
What is the
are a problem.
principal difference? I'm looking
This exchange became the core of the hearing's tension.
for a principle. I understand you hate the president. I understand you love all of these rulings against him. You and I both know that's not a principle. You're a lawyer. What's the principle that divides when issuing a nationwide injunction is okay when it's not? When the Biden administration was subject to nationwide injunctions, you said that they were travesties for the principle of democracy. You didn't say the referral to Judge Kaczmarek was a travesty. You said his injunction was a travesty for principles of democracy. Yeah. So, in other words, the translation is just you didn't like the outcome. Is that right?
No, Senator. Look, we're talking about, I don't think Article 3 precludes this form of relief. So we are talking about prudential considerations.
Prudential meaning political?
No.
Then give me, so far I have yet to hear it. You've been questioned by multiple senators. I have yet to hear a principle.
To his credit, Professor Shaw offered a moment of unusual honesty.
law.
Look, Senator, I'll say I think I am self-aware enough to know that my view of the underlying legal question, I am sure, colors my perception of the remedy. I think that we should all acknowledge that. And yet I do think
And
that
why shouldn't we stop nationwide injunctions for everybody?
I think
That's what we're talking about today.
because I'm not willing to leave without relief non-parties who
No,
are
you're
injured.
not willing to leave without the ability to bind President Trump.
No, I
right?
think that.
I mean, when it's
believe-
Biden, it's okay.
No.
When it's Biden, oh, it's a travesty. When it's Trump in office, it's no holds barred, whatever it takes, right?
Hawley raised an important historical point.
Which was never done in this country before the 1960s. And let's see the chart, the Trump chart, which was done really only once Trump came into office for the first time. You don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit
A
strange? Do
very
you think this is
plausible
good for the rule of
explanation,
law?
Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this
concede that
was
as a
never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no, actually,
It's Republican appointees as well, Senator.
don't like
And the 1960s is where some scholars sort of locate the beginning
Can you
of this. But
identify one
others,
before then?
Mila Sahoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first. There were others in the
okay, so we
20s.
endured, the Republic endured for 150 years before there was a nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot less until 100 years ago. So there's many things that have changed in the last 100 or the last 50 years.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for.
That is
How
not-
can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are
Is
no
that
meaningful
blind?
constraints on the president is a very dangerous system
That's
of law.
not what
and I
you
am-
thought when Joe Biden. That is not what you thought when
I
Joe
think
Biden was
every
president.
president
You
is
said that is
constrained
not what
and
you
must be.
said. You said it was
Absolutely.
a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law. You also said
Supreme
when Joe
Court, Senator,
Biden was
agreed-
president. Wait a minute,
agreed
wait a
9-0
minute.
with me on
you
that
also
case,
said
to
when
be
Joe
clear.
Biden was president, you said the idea that anyone would foreign shop to get a judge who would issue a nationwide injunction was just politicians, just judges looking like politicians in robes. Again, it threatened the underlying legal system. People just trying to get the result they wanted. It was a travesty for the rule of law. But you're fine with all of that if it's getting the result that you want. All that's changed in 9 months is the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I realize that my colleagues on this side of the aisle very much dislike that individual. And I realize that you think that the rulings that he has lost are fundamentally sound. We might grant all of that. I disagree with all of that, but we can put that to one side. The question we're talking about here is, should judges, single judges, district court judges, be able to bind non-parties who are not in front of them? And you used to say no, now you say yes. Let's be consistent. I would just suggest to you our system of government cannot survive if it's going to be politics all the way down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I briefly respond?
Sure.
I mean, you invoked democracy a couple of times there, Senator. Judges
I
are
quoted
part.
you.
Judges
I quoted
are
you,
part
Professor.
of our system of democracy. Democracy is not as simple as majority rule. Judges have always served something of a
You would have it be as simple as
function.
majority rule. When you get the majority you like, you're for the nationwide injunction. When you don't, you're not.
This hearing exposed something that both parties would rather not acknowledge. On the question of nationwide injunctions, there appears to be very little consistency on either side. Republicans challenged nationwide injunctions during the Obama years. Democrats defended them. Then Trump took office, and the positions flipped. Now we're back to a Trump administration, and the positions have flipped again. The hearing didn't resolve these questions, but put them on display in a way that was uncomfortable for everyone involved. What do you think? Should nationwide injunctions be restricted? Do you see hypocrisy on both sides? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, consider subscribing. Until next time,